I'm sorry, Anya, Preston had murmured, his eyes refusing to meet hers, fixed instead on the twinkling, ephemeral lights of the starlight market. The words, delivered with a callous shrug in the crisp, spiced air, were simple, yet they were an axe blow to the foundations of her world. It's just a jogger. Countess like you need a powerful man, someone who can actually command a manner, not just a scribe. I can't be that for you, not anymore. I'm letting you go. The scent of cinnamon and pine, the very smells of promised festive joy, suddenly tasted like ash in her mouth. She felt the blood drain from her face, leaving a cold mask of shock. The empty space he created as he stepped back was a chasm, a canyon opening up between her and all her carefully constructed hopes. For 6 years, she had loved him, supported his humble aspirations, and now, here, on the night they were supposed to confirm their bond before the winter solstice, he was rejecting her for being exactly who she was, a woman of lineage, a countess, a woman who needed a partner of equal emotional weight, not just a fragile ego that crumbled under the weight of her potential. The betrayal was less in the words and more in the timing, the public setting, the sheer, breathtaking cruelty of it. She watched his retreating back, a blur against the cheerful, milling crowd of mortals and low-ranking fae, and a searing pain erupted in her chest, a grief so potent it felt physical, like a blade twisting. I am not too much, she thought, her hands trembling inside her thin silk gloves. I am simply too much for you. That thought, however, was a fragile shield against the tidal wave of rejection. She sunk onto the nearest marble bench beneath a banner that ironically proclaimed, "May your hearth be warm." The cool stone, a shocking contrast to the fire raging within her. The Dajager blood, usually a source of quiet strength, felt like a curse tonight. She was alone, completely, utterly, and devastatingly alone, at the most emotionally charged place on the ethereal plane. She looked up at the vast, shimmering darkness overhead, peppered with enchanted, artificial stars, and made a silent vow. She would never again allow her happiness to be dependent on the approval of a weak man. The tears finally came, hot and silent, tracking a lonely path through the cold air. The empty seat opposite her, which Preston should have occupied, was not just an empty chair, it was a monument to her failure to connect, a stark, illuminated symbol of her solitary life. And so, Anya Selwyn, Countess of the Shadowfall Marches, sat weeping amidst the laughter of strangers, utterly convinced that her destiny was to walk a path of beautiful yet profound isolation. The music of the market, which had moments before been a merry waltz, morphed in her ears into a somber, lonely melody, a soundtrack to her unexpected heartbreak. The irony was high contrast, devastatingly so. The night that was meant to usher in a future of shared warmth had instead opened a door to a life of emotional frost. But she did not realize that the very depth of her pain was acting as a lure, a powerful emotional anchor on the astral current, one that was about to snag something utterly unexpected and irrevocably change the course of her entire life, moving her from the bitter cold of rejection to the consuming warmth of an impossible, fated love. Her sobbing, though quiet, was not unnoticed by every single soul in the market, particularly not by the two small, unnervingly perceptive figures who moved silently through the press of people, their eyes, the color of twilight and filled with an ancient wisdom fixed only upon her. The dramatic question was not if her life would change, but how a fragile moment of public humiliation could become the crucible for a powerful, eternal connection. The quiet desperation of her solitary figure beneath the brightly burning lights was the perfect canvas for destiny's brush. The twin shadowlings, Astrid and Bronte, were 5 years old, yet they possessed the quiet, unnerving empathy of creatures who had lived for 1,000 years. They were miniature copies of their father, with their startlingly pale hair and eyes that absorbed the light, lending them an ethereal quality. Even at 5 years old, the Shadowling twins had learned to read people, to categorize them as light, shadow, or merely human with unnerving accuracy. The beautiful countess, sitting alone and crying, was emitting a powerful, silvery sorrow, a beacon that called to them not in distress but in shared solitude. They had been sent to the market ostensibly for spiced mead and a handful of star candies, but their true, unspoken mission was always to observe, to seek out the quiet places. Their father, Lysander Veronin, king of the night court, a being of vast power and even vaster hidden loneliness, had instilled in them a unique blend of compassion and detachment. He often said, "The most powerful connections are forged in moments of vulnerability, Astrid. The greatest truths are told in tears, Bronte." They moved in perfect, synchronized silence, their dark clothes making them nearly invisible against the throngs of colorfully dressed fae. Astrid, the more outspoken, tugged Bronte's sleeve. "She's Shadowkin, Bronte," she whispered, her voice a breathy sound that was barely audible over the market noise. "And she's broken. See how the light avoids her?" Bronte merely nodded, his gaze fixed on Anya's rigid, isolated posture. They saw the empty chair, understood its stark symbolism immediately. The weak man had left. That much was plain. They knew, intuitively, that this was not a loss, but an opportunity, a space being cleared by the universe. When they reached the marble bench, Astrid did not hesitate. She placed her small hand, cool, shockingly so, but steady and firm, on Anya's wrist. Anya flinched, pulling her hand away, startled, looking up through a wet, blurry vision at the two small, pale faces hovering near her. They looked like perfect porcelain dolls, their expressions intense and unreadable. "The weak man didn't come, did he?" Astrid asked, her tone flat, not a question, but a simple statement of fact. Anya blinked, the sheer directness of the child's observation cutting through her fog of grief. She dabbed her eyes with the back of her glove. "No, sweetling," Anya managed, her voice a raw whisper. "He did not." Bronte then spoke, his voice deeper than his sister's, his words carrying an odd, resonant weight. "Maybe the weak man didn't come so you could meet us instead." It was the child as oracle, articulating the profound destiny before the adult could even grasp the basic reality. That simple, unfiltered statement, devoid of adult artifice, struck Anya with a force that surpassed Preston's cruelty. It was a high contrast irony, the worst moment suddenly illuminated by the purest, most profound innocence. Anya found herself managing a weak, genuine smile. "And who, may I ask, are you two?" she asked, her sorrow momentarily receding beneath the wave of pure, innocent wonder the children radiated. "We are Astrid and Bronte," Astrid announced, puffing out her chest with a touch of youthful pride. "And we are lost," Bronte added, his eyes, however, betraying no sign of distress. They looked like two perfectly tailored, miniature noble children who had momentarily misplaced their entourage. The children were clearly not lost in the common sense of the word. They were simply unaccompanied and entirely comfortable in that state. Anya felt a shift in her emotional landscape. The focus, violently ripped from her self-pity, was now directed outward towards the care and protection of these two startlingly beautiful and unusual beings. It was a potent distraction, a necessary intervention. "Lost?" Anya repeated, standing up, the chill of the marble bench replaced by a sudden, protective warmth. "Do you know where your parents are? Or perhaps a guard?" Astrid shook her head, her pale hair catching the starlight. "Our father is near," she said, choosing the vague word carefully, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. "He is looking for us, but he's very good at not finding us until we want to be found." Bronte stepped closer to Anya, looking up at her with unnerving intensity. "We are hungry," he stated, once again bypassing the niceties of mortal conversation. "Can we join you? Can we share your table until Father finds us?" The request, "Can we join you?" was a turning point, a soft, insistent hammer blow that shattered the lingering isolation. It was the antithesis of Preston's rejection. Where he had cut her out, these two tiny figures were asking to be let in. Anya looked at the empty seat, the monument to her failure, and saw it instantly transform into a space of unexpected welcome. "Yes," she said, her voice surprisingly firm, the tremble gone. "Yes, of course, you can. We will wait for your father together." She led them back to the bench, now sitting between the two small, warm bodies. The sensory description of the moment was overwhelming. The scent of spiced mead and star candies suddenly returned, not as an insult, but as a promise. The cool marble table was forgotten as the children leaned against her. Anya felt a foreign, yet comforting weight settle on her shoulders. Responsibility, a purpose greater than wallowing. She ordered them warm cider and soft ginger biscuits and watched them eat with the quiet, aristocratic decorum of people who were used to great luxury but were utterly unpretentious about it. Astrid, in a moment of pure situational humor, looked at the biscuit and said, "Father says if we eat too much sugar, we'll turn into mortals, but I think they look very happy." Anya laughed, a genuine warm sound that surprised even herself. The laughter was gentle, situational, and warm, dissolving the residual lump in her throat. The Shadowkin children's presence was a powerful, silent affirmation. She was not alone, and she was certainly not too much. Every disappointment, every lonely night she had spent, every tear shed over Preston's eventual coldness had led her here, to this bench, to these children. It was a destiny, fate, analogy made manifest, a profound, immediate course correction orchestrated by a seemingly random encounter. Their conversation was a rhythmic exchange, a quiet counterpoint to the market's boisterous energy. Anya learned that the children were fascinated by maps, by the borders of the ethereal plane, and by the terrible manners of the low-level goblins who frequented the outer edges of their court. They spoke of their father, the king, with a blend of awe and easy familiarity, painting a portrait of an emotionally powerful yet profoundly solitary man who loved quiet libraries and long walks in the dead of the lunar night. They were describing a being of immense hidden loneliness, a mirror to Anya's own. Bronte, eyes twinkling, pointed across the crowded square. "Father is very good at negotiations," he said. "He can negotiate with a rogue dragon lord or a grumpy vegetable vendor. He's very professional." The gentle humor in the description was perfectly timed, prompting another soft smile from Anya. "He sounds formidable," she replied, genuinely intrigued by the mysterious man who commanded such loyalty and such unusual skills. "I hope he arrives soon. He must be worried." Astrid leaned in conspiratorially. "He's not worried, Countess Anya," she said, using her title with startling precision. "He knows we are fine. He is simply waiting for the right moment to find us." The pacing was a slow burn, a deliberate, quiet build-up of connection. The rhetorical pause hung in the air. The right moment suggested that their presence with Anya was not merely accidental. It was a planned convergence. Anya considered the possibility, the threads of fate weaving themselves visibly before her. Was this entire evening, Preston's cruelty, her tears, the children's sudden arrival, part of a grander, more intentional narrative? The use of supernatural, fantasy-adjacent vocabulary, shadowkin, dragon lord, ethereal plane, was a constant reminder that this was not a simple romance, but a high-stakes narrative unfolding in a world governed by ancient powers. The third person limited omniscient point of view, centered on Anya's internal emotional state, was beginning to expand. She was not just observing the children, she was feeling the warmth of their hands, the cool kiss of the night air, and the growing certainty that the man who was about to appear would be the emotional center of a destiny she never knew she craved. She felt a deep, sentimental hope bloom in the place where profound heartbreak had just resided. The high contrast irony was fully realized. The deepest rejection was the necessary prerequisite for the deepest connection. The children's repetition of their father's calm demeanor, his patience, and his quiet power was building the tension towards the inevitable reveal. She could hear the piano-cello music swell in her inner ear, anticipating the climax. The moment Lysander Voronin, the king of the night court, chose to reveal himself was choreographed with the quiet, arresting drama that was characteristic of his kind. He did not rush through the crowd. He emerged, simply appeared, from the deep shadows pooling beneath the largest, most brightly lit star lantern. He was tall, intimidatingly so, clothed in the simple, yet exquisite black leather and silk of a man who needed no outward flash to proclaim his power. His pale, nearly white hair was pulled back, emphasizing the sharp, striking lines of his face, and his eyes, the exact same shade of absorbing twilight as his children's, swept the square until they landed on the marble bench, on the sight of his two small children nestled against the stunning, weeping De Jager countess. The visual metaphor was potent. He was the shadow embracing the light. The music cue would have been instantaneous, the cello dropping into a deep, rich, intimate score. The pacing quickened as he approached, his stride long and silent. Anya watched him, utterly captivated. He was a creature of refined, raw power, every bit the formidable figure the children had described, yet there was a deep, almost painful solitude etched around his eyes, a mirroring loneliness that spoke directly to her own. He stopped directly before them, and the simple proximity of his power made the air around them shimmer, noticeably cooling the already crisp night. Astrid and Bronte immediately launched themselves at him, hugging his legs with the casual affection of children who felt completely safe. Lysander's gaze, however, remained on Anya. It was an intense, assessing look, yet devoid of judgment, only filled with an ancient, weary kindness. He saw the remnants of tears on her cheeks, the fierce dignity of her posture, and the clear protective way she had been guarding his children. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low, resonant, and intimate, a sound like velvet-wrapped steel. Countess Selwyn, he said, using her title with the same quiet authority as his daughter. My apologies. My children are prone to independent exploration. Thank you for their company and for your protection. His language was elevated, poetic, and utterly mesmerizing. Anya finally stood, forcing herself to meet his eyes. They are remarkable children, Your Majesty, she replied, matching his formality with an intrinsic grace. They found me, actually, and they were my protection. They rescued me from a rather bleak moment. She offered a small, self-deprecating smile. The high-stakes narrative intensified. Lysander's gaze softened, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. He understood immediately. He looked at the empty seat, the stark symbol of her recent abandonment. He reached out a hand, one gloved in soft black leather, and gently, with a touch that was cool, shockingly so, but steady and firm, brushed a stray tear from her cheek. It was a gesture of profound intimacy and immediate acknowledgement of her pain. His emotional tone was deeply sentimental. The dialogue that followed was authentic and simple, a stark contrast to the drama of the preceding moments. Lysander did not press her for details. He simply accepted her statement as a profound, shared truth. He pulled his heavy, black woolen cloak, a garment that seemed to absorb the light, more tightly around his shoulders. Then, with a gesture that was both regal and surprisingly tender, He extended the edge of it towards her. "The night air is cold, Countess," he said, his eyes holding hers in a mesmerizing lock. "And your silk is thin. You shouldn't be alone. May I stay? May I wrap you in my cloak and share a cup of mead with you?" The repetition of the central question, "May I stay?" was the dramatic focal point of the entire script, the direct, powerful answer to Preston's "I'm letting you go." The former rejection was immediately eclipsed by the latter profound invitation to connection and warmth. Anya's heart, which had been a leaden weight minutes before, seemed to flutter, light and fragile, in her chest. The offer was simple, yet laden with impossible meaning. It was an invitation not just to share a seat, but to share a solitude, to bridge the gap of their respective loneliness. The pacing was slow burn, savoring the high emotional moment. She could feel the heat radiating from him, a shocking contrast to the chill of the evening. She thought of Preston, the scribe who feared her power, and then looked at this man, a king of the night court, who offered not just comfort, but the shelter of his immense solitary presence. The contrast was breathtaking. "Yes, Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice husky with emotion. "I would like that very much." Lysander did not take the chair Preston had vacated. Instead, he simply sat beside her, allowing his children to settle on the other side. Then, he performed the simple, deeply sentimental act of physically drawing the heavy, dark cloak over her shoulders, cocooning her in its warmth. The visual metaphor was powerful. The Shadow King was literally wrapping her in his shadow, not to conceal her, but to protect her. The sensory description, the rich scent of old leather and something akin to frost and cedar that clung to his cloak, was grounding, making the fantasy element feel immediately real and intimate. He signaled to a passing vendor for 2 more cups of spiced mead, and when they arrived, he handed one to her, their fingers brushing, cool, steady, electric. The point of view was intensely focused on Anya's shift from despair to hopeful wonder. The high contrast irony had reached its zenith. The loneliest night of her life had suddenly become the most intimate. This was not a forced connection. It was a fated one, a profound, immediate bond that resonated with every core element of her Shadowkin blood. They sat in comfortable, quiet companionship, a small, unexpected family unit amidst the chaos of the market. Lysander spoke of his children's love for vegetable negotiations, a funny nod to Astrid's earlier remark, and of the quiet, unexpected challenges of ruling a court that was perpetually on the fringe of the ethereal plane. His humor was gentle, situational, and warm, easing the remaining tension from Anya's shoulders. He was secretly solitary, yet instantly present, utterly captivating. Anya found her voice again, telling him of her quiet work archiving the Dajjager histories, of her love for old, leather-bound books, and the sheer, unexpected shock of Preston's casual cruelty. Lysander listened with an intense, focused attention that made her feel as if she were the only person in the universe. He was not judgmental of Preston, only dismissive of his weakness. "His loss, Countess," Lysander said simply, swirling the mead in his cup. "You are light and fire, and a man who is afraid of his own shadow could never handle the sun you hold within you." He was a small man in a large world. His words were motivational, poetic, and elevated, a balm to the deep wound Preston had inflicted. The narrative structure was linear, following the arc of connection. The bond between them was deepening rapidly, catalyzed by the children's presence and the shared moment of vulnerability. Astrid and Bronte, sensing the profound shift, were quiet, occasionally leaning against Anya or their father, their silent approval a palpable force. Anya realized with startling clarity that she was not just sharing a bench. She was sharing a life with this man and his children. It was a profound, immediate connection that eclipsed 6 years of superficial attachment with Preston. The realization was the emotional climax. She lifted her mead cup to him. To being too much, she murmured, a trace of ironic defiance in her voice. Lysander met her gaze, his twilight eyes gleaming with a fierce appreciation that was anything but ironic. To being exactly enough, he corrected, his voice a low, binding vow. Their cups clicked quietly. It was a repetition of a key phrase, transforming the initial rejection into a statement of self-worth. It was the crucial intersection of the destiny-fate analogy. Maybe they were supposed to cross tonight. The visual cue prompt for music cues would have the piano swelling gently here, an intimate melody underscoring the quiet power of their shared sentiment. The evening drew to a close, and the pace began to pick up towards the resolution. Lysander stood, his height and power momentarily eclipsing the market's noise. The time for quiet conversation was over. The time for action had arrived. "It is late, Anya Selwyn," he said, dropping the formality of her title, using her name like a soft promise. "The market is closing and the shadows are deepening. I cannot, in good conscience, leave a countess of your stature to walk alone through the shadow fall marches tonight, not after what you have endured." His language was simple for the dialogue, yet laced with the elevated tone of the ruling class, highlighting the high-stakes narrative. Astrid and Bronte looked up at Anya, their eyes filled with silent, profound expectation. The child as oracle element was now transferred to a silent appeal. Anya knew what he was offering, what the question really meant. An invitation not just to shelter, but to his court, to his life. It was a complete final break from the future she had expected and a plunge into the one she had only just discovered she wanted. The internal monologue was swift and decisive. No more weak men, only strength that recognizes strength. "Where do you suggest I go, Your Majesty?" she asked, her voice steady and clear. The reveal was imminent. Lysander smiled, a rare, breathtaking display of warmth that transformed his formidable face into one of devastating emotional appeal. "To my home, of course," he stated simply. "To the night court. It is well guarded, warm, and more importantly, it has room for you, as my consort, should you choose it." The title, My Consort, was the full, formal reveal, the acknowledgement of the power dynamic, but delivered as an open choice. It was the immediate, stunning resolution to the rejection-resolution arc. Anya drew a deep, shuddering breath. The air around them felt charged, electric. The dramatic fantasy romance was no longer a theoretical possibility. It was a sudden, concrete offer. The destiny-fate analogy was sealed. She did not hesitate, the final decision clear and unambiguous. "I choose it, King Veronin," she replied, her own small smile matching his. "I choose the warmth of your company over the emptiness I was offered. Lead the way." The resolution was firm and immediate. Lysander nodded, a silent acknowledgement of her courage, her profound emotional resilience. He did not touch her, did not rush the moment with physical affection, understanding that her emotional acceptance was the only thing that mattered. Instead, he simply extended his hand, the black leather glove a stark contrast to the pale skin of her hand. She took it. His grip was cool, shockingly so, but steady and firm, a reassuring anchor. Astrid and Bronte immediately took her other hand, one on each side, completing the physical symmetry of the new family unit. The visual cue prompt for on-screen text would display the phrase, "I choose the warmth of your company." The visual metaphor of light and shadow was executed as they walked away from the brightly lit central square, heading towards the deep, velvety shadows at the market's edge, towards the ethereal plain's boundary where his court resided. They walked as one, the tall king, the beautiful countess, and the two small, prophetic children. The pacing was rhythmic, a slow, deliberate walk that signaled the beginning of their shared future. The narrator's voice, worn and earnest, would take on a final, inspirational tone for the closing lesson. The true lesson of the Starlight Market was not about finding love, but about finding self-worth. Anya had thought her rejection by Preston was the end of her story, the most heartbreaking moment of her life. She believed she was flawed, too much for a weak man to handle. But Preston's cruelty was not an end. It was a beginning, the painful, necessary act of clearing space for a destiny that was immense, powerful, and utterly worthy of her. Lysander, the formidable king of the Night Court, did not see her power as a burden. He saw it as a necessary complement to his own vast loneliness, recognizing a fierce dignity and a profound shared solitude that transcended mere romance. He was the strength that allowed her to be her strength. She realized that the people who walk away from you often do so because they are too small to contain the energy of your future. Preston's cruelty was a beginning, not an end. And so, Countess Anya Selwyn, now walking hand in hand with the Vampire King and his children, understood the true, beautiful irony of the night. She had gone to the Starlight Market to finalize a failed connection, and instead she had found an eternal one where she was not just accepted, but celebrated for every part of who she was. Her hands no longer trembled, her eyes no longer burned with tears, but with the quiet, potent fire of a woman who had finally stepped into her true, fated power. The heart that had been broken was now soaring, uplifting, and deeply sentimental. The single, most devastating moment of her life had, in a single, simple question, "May I stay?" turned into the most profound, beautiful beginning. Her story was a powerful testament to the fact that sometimes the universe has to break your heart to move you toward your true destiny, a destiny that is always bigger, bolder, and more beautiful than you could ever have planned. Wrapped in his cloak, she felt the cool, shockingly so, but steady and firm grip of his hand, and the smaller, comforting weight of the twins on her other side, walking away from the market lights and into the welcoming, protective shadow of the Night Court, her solitary life dissolving into a fated, powerful future.